Someone pulls up to a donation door, drops off a bag of clothes they no longer want, and drives away. That bag cost the store nothing, zero. So let us follow that free bag through the store and add up exactly how a business makes money on things people freely give away. Because here is the setup that sounds too good to be true. In normal retail, the single biggest cost is buying your inventory. A thrift store's inventory arrives for free, dropped at the door by strangers. Its cost of goods can be effectively zero, so you want to own a thrift store. By the end of this video, you will know why free inventory is not the golden ticket it sounds like, where the money actually comes from, and why the hardest part of this business is not selling anything. It is dealing with the flood. Start with what it actually takes to open the doors, because the inventory may be free, but nothing else is. First, you need a space, and thrift stores need a lot of it. Not just a shop floor, but a big back room to receive, sort, and store the constant river of donations. You run a small warehouse and a store at once, so square footage is one of your largest fixed costs. Then the fittings: racks, shelves, hangers, a counter, a point-of-sale system, tagging guns, cleaning supplies to make donated goods presentable. None of it is glamorous, but it adds up fast before you have sold a single sweater. Add it up, and opening a real thrift store commonly costs somewhere between $20,000 and $150,000, depending mostly on the size of the space and the city. Far less than normal retail, because you skip the biggest cost, yet far from free. And there are two ways to run it: as a for-profit business, where the money you make is yours, or as a non-profit, where the profits fund a mission like job training, and the organization gets tax advantages in return. Same store on the surface, two completely different engines underneath. So back to our free bag. The moment it lands at your door, here is what you have actually taken on. You have inherited a mystery. That bag might hold a clean designer jacket worth real money, or stained shirts, a broken toaster, and a single shoe. You did not choose any of it. You take whatever the public brings you, good and bad, all mixed together. And here is the hard truth of free inventory. A large share of what gets donated cannot be sold at all. It is stained, broken, unsafe, or plain worthless, and you have to sort it out and pay to haul it away. Free inventory comes with a built-in garbage bill. So the first real job is triage. Trained sorters split every donation fast. Sellable goes to be cleaned, tagged, and priced. Unsellable but recyclable, especially textiles, gets baled and sold in bulk to rag dealers for pennies. And true trash gets paid to be thrown away. 3 streams, from one bag. Then the sellable items get processed. Each piece is inspected, cleaned, tagged, and put on the floor, where it has limited time to sell before it is marked down and pulled. A thrift store is a conveyor belt. Goods must keep moving, or they clog the system. So where does the money actually come from? Free goods in, but cash out of what, exactly? Layer 1 is the shop floor. Everyday clothes, furniture, books, kitchenware, and toys, priced low and sold in volume. This is the bread and butter. Thousands of small sales, each one nearly pure margin, because the item cost you nothing to acquire. Volume is the whole game here. The scale of this, done right, is enormous. America's largest thrift operator, a non-profit network, pulls in around $4 billion a year in retail sales from donated goods, and diverts roughly 2 billion pounds of stuff from landfills in the process. Layer 2 is the treasure. Hidden in the flood of ordinary donations are the gems. A designer handbag, a vintage jacket, a first edition book, real jewelry, an antique. Smart operators pull these out and sell them separately, online, for many times a shelf price. The rare find is a real, if unpredictable, revenue stream. Layer 3 is the bins, the outlet at the end of the line. Whatever does not sell on the shop floor gets sent to a last chance outlet, where goods are dumped into giant bins and sold not by the item, but by the pound. It is the final squeeze of value out of everything before it leaves for good as waste. And layer 4 is the bale. Textiles nobody buys, even by the pound, are compressed into large bales and sold in bulk to recyclers and exporters, shipped onward to be resold or turned into rags. Pennies on the pound, but on this volume, even the leftovers pay. Here is the number that reframes this entire business. You would assume that free inventory means easy profit. It does not. Because the moment goods are free and unlimited, your problem flips completely. It is no longer how do I get things to sell. It is how do I process this endless flood fast enough, and cheaply enough, to make money on it. A thrift store's real cost is not inventory. It is labor and logistics. It is the people and hours needed to receive, sort, clean, tag, shelve, mark down, and haul away a constant mountain of random stuff. That processing is the true engine, and the true expense, of the whole business. Listen to that again. In normal retail, you pay for goods, and selling is the hard part. In a thrift store, the goods are free, and processing them is the hard part. This whole business is not a store sitting on top of a supply of products. It is a sorting machine that happens to have a shop attached to the front. So let us run the real books, because the costs are exactly the ones a newcomer forgets. On the cost side, first and largest, labor. Sorters, cleaners, pricers, floor staff, and cashiers. Processing a river of donations is people-intensive, and payroll is by far the biggest line on a thrift store's books. This is where the free inventory quietly gets paid for, in wages. Second, the space. Rent or mortgage on a large building, because you need room for both selling and the constant sorting and storage behind it. Big footprint means big monthly rent, whether or not a good donation ever comes through the door. Third, and the one nobody expects, disposal. You pay to throw away the large share of donations that no one will ever buy. Every unsellable, unrecyclable item that comes through your door is a small cost you absorb. The generosity of the public is also a garbage bill you cannot refuse. And on the revenue side, the great advantage. Because your goods are free, almost every sale is nearly pure gross margin, and demand actually rises when the economy falls. In good times, people donate more. In hard times, people buy more secondhand. It is one of the few retail models that is durably recession-resistant on both sides at once. And that leads straight to the trap that quietly sinks thrift stores. Its trap is that free and unlimited inventory feels like a blessing, so owners underinvest in the one thing that actually matters: the processing engine. Donations pour in faster than a thin crew can sort them, and the back room fills up. Goods pile up unprocessed, aging, taking space, and never reaching the floor to be sold. Meanwhile, the small margins on the floor are being eaten alive by rent on all that space, wages for the crew you do have, and disposal fees on everything you cannot sell. A thrift store can be flooded with valuable donations and still lose money every month, all because it cannot process its own good fortune fast enough. So the killer is not lack of inventory, it is drowning in it. The winners are not the ones with the most donations. They are the ones who can turn a mountain of random stuff into sold items fastest, at the lowest cost per piece. Throughput, not stock, is the whole game. It is worth knowing where this whole model came from, because it was an idea, not an accident. More than a century ago, a minister in Boston had a simple, powerful idea. Instead of just handing charity to the poor, he collected the unwanted household goods of the wealthy, then hired people who needed work to repair and resell them. Charity became a job, and the discarded became the inventory. That single idea, a hand up rather than a hand out, funded by selling donated goods, grew into a global movement. Today, one descendant of it operates thousands of stores, is recognized by the vast majority of the public, and turns billions of pounds of cast-offs a year into jobs and training. All of it built on things people were about to throw away. But that scale brought scrutiny too, and it is worth being honest about it. Big thrift organizations have faced real criticism over how little some workers were once paid under old legal loopholes, over executive pay, and over what happens to the goods and electronics they cannot sell. A model built on doing good still has to be watched to make sure it actually does. So how does a thrift store actually fail? Almost never from empty shelves. Picture the common failure. An owner opens a bright new store, donations flood in, and the shelves fill beautifully. Sales are decent. It looks like a hit, so they lean back and let the donations keep pouring in, proud of how full the store is. But the crew is too small to keep up. The back room slowly jams with unprocessed bags. Good items sit buried for weeks and never reach the floor while they are still in style. The disposal bills climb as unsorted piles rot, and the rent on all that clogged space keeps coming, month after month. So the store is simultaneously overflowing with goods and starving for cash. And the margins on what does sell cannot cover the rent, wages, and disposal on everything that does not. It closes, not because nobody wanted to shop there, but because it could never process its own flood into sales fast enough to pay the bills. So who actually builds a thriving thrift store? The survivors understand that a thrift store is a processing business, not a shopping business, so they pour their attention into throughput, into moving goods from the door to a sale as fast and cheaply as possible. First, they build a fast, disciplined sorting operation. Trained sorters make quick decisions. Sellable goods reach the floor within days, and everything else is baled or binned immediately, so the back room never becomes a graveyard. Speed of processing is treated as the most important number in the business. Second, they capture the treasure. They train staff to spot the designer, the vintage, the collectible, and route those items to online sales instead of letting a $100 jacket sell for $4. A few well-spotted gems can lift a whole month. Third, they run every layer of the value ladder. Shop floor first, then the outlet bins, then the bales, squeezing revenue from goods at every stage before they finally leave as waste. And the strongest operators run on volume and tight cost control, because on nearly free goods, whoever processes cheapest and fastest wins. So does owning a thrift store actually work? Run both sides. The good version, you treat it as the processing machine it really is. You sort fast, move goods to the floor within days, capture the treasure, and squeeze every layer from shelf to bin to bale. Your costs per item are low, your throughput is high, and you run a solidly recession-resistant business, nearly pure margin, that also keeps mountains of goods out of a landfill. The bad version, you mistook free inventory for easy money. You understaffed the sorting, the back room jammed, good goods rotted unsold, and the disposal and rent bills buried the thin margins on what did sell. You drowned in donations, cash-starved in a building full of stuff, and closed with the shelves still full. So the honest verdict: a thrift store is one of the few businesses on earth where the inventory is free and the demand is recession-proof, which sounds unbeatable, but that is exactly the trap. That free flood is not the prize, it is the challenge. The real business is the unglamorous machine that turns a mountain of cast-offs into sold goods, fast and cheap. Master the processing, and free inventory becomes a gold mine. Ignore it, and it buries you. Here is the thing to remember: the next time you drop a bag at a donation door and drive away without a second thought, that bag was not the end of those things. It was the start of a second life, and of a small, hidden industry of people who will sort it, clean it, price it, and find it a new owner, turning what you discarded into both a bargain for someone else and a living for themselves. Those goods were never really the business. Anyone can be handed free stuff. It was always the quiet, relentless machine that turns a flood of cast-offs into sorted, priced, sold value, faster than the flood can bury it. Bargains were never the point. The processing always was. Nobody threw those things away. They just moved them one step down a chain that quietly turns yesterday's cast-offs into today's bargains, and a mountain of free stuff into a real, working business.